What if I told you Solo Sikoa was done with the bloodline, for good? Yeah, that's what everyone thought, until last night. Because in a move no one saw coming, Solo Sikoa just walked straight into Roman Reigns' locker room, shook his hand, and declared war on the very men who betrayed him at Money in the Bank, Fatu and JC Matteo. You heard that right. The enforcer is back. And he's pissed. Forget what you thought you knew. The bloodline isn't dead. It's mutated. Now, Roman and Solo are a wrecking machine, reborn, relentless, and ready to burn everything down. In this video, we're breaking down this shocking post-betrayal alliance, what went down backstage, and how WWE's entire power structure just got flipped on its head. Get ready, because this isn't just a feud. This is war. Until last night. Because in a move no one saw coming, Solo Sikoa didn't walk away. He walked straight back in. Right into Roman Reigns' locker room. No hesitation. No fear. He didn't speak a word at first. He didn't need to. All he did was extend a hand to the tribal chief, bloodstained, battle-tested, and shake on something far more dangerous than any title match or WrestleMania main event. An alliance forged in betrayal. A war pact with the devil he once stood beside, and then tried to escape. Solo Sikoa is back. And he's pissed. Forget what you thought you knew. The bloodline isn't dead. It's mutated. And now, with Fatu and JC Matteo in the crosshairs, the entire WWE landscape is about to get scorched. This isn't just another swerve. This isn't your average heel turn or a tag team breakup. This is a full-blown power reset in WWE's most volatile dynasty. For over 3 years, the Bloodline storyline defined WWE. Roman Reigns stood at the top of the mountain, flanked by the Usos, Paul Heyman, and later, the silent enforcer, Solo Sikoa. They weren't just characters, they were a movement. But all empires fall. And when cracks began forming, loyalty wavered, egos clashed, betrayal surfaced, many thought the story had reached its climax. Then came Money in the Bank. Fatu and JC Matteo, new bloodline recruits, handpicked to carry the legacy forward, betrayed Solo Sikoa on live television. No warning. No remorse. A steel chair to the spine. A beatdown that screamed message sent. It was raw. It was ruthless. It was supposed to be the end. Only, it wasn't. Because last night, backstage at SmackDown, cameras caught what could only be described as WWE's most explosive backstage moment in years. Roman Reigns. Solo Sikoa. Alone. Eye to eye. No Paul Heyman. No Usos. No words. Just an understanding. And then the handshake that flipped the entire story upside down. This wasn't just a reunion. It was a declaration of war. Let's not sugarcoat it, this changes everything. This isn't about family anymore. It's not about legacy. It's about vengeance. Control. Redemption. Solo Sikoa just burned every bridge he had left with the men who called him brother. And in doing so, he reignited the blood feud that could redefine the next year of WWE programming. Because now you've got two terrifying forces united again, Roman Reigns, calculating, methodical, and more dangerous than ever now that he's been embarrassed and sidelined for months. Solo Sikoa, a silent killer with nothing to lose and something to prove. Together, they don't just want their spot back. They want retribution. They want to humiliate Fatu and JC Matteo the same way they humiliated Solo at Money in the Bank. And let's be clear, this isn't going to be settled in the ring with a handshake after a pay-per-view. This is personal. This is war. Here's the real question fans are asking, why now? Why did Solo go back to Roman? Why did Roman accept him? Why did they wait until now? 3 reasons. Timing is everything. Fatu and JC Matteo struck when Roman was absent. When Paul Heyman was fumbling to hold things together. When the power structure was vulnerable. But now Roman's back. And the chessboard just reset. Loyalty isn't always what it seems. Solo's silence over the past few weeks wasn't cowardice, it was calculation. While fans were writing him off, he was watching. Waiting. And choosing. Not his family. Not his friends. His future. Roman doesn't forget. Roman Reigns has made a career out of holding grudges. And if you think he's going to let two newcomers like Fatu and Matteo run the bloodline off the rails and get away with it? You don't know the tribal chief. And now with Solo at his side again? He doesn't need to forgive. He just needs to punish. So, what happens next? That's what we're diving into in this video. We're going deep into the psychology behind Solo's betrayal of his betrayers, the layers of manipulation and legacy that brought him back to Roman, the backstage politics that may have played a role in this decision, and the real-world reactions from fans, wrestlers, and insiders. But more than that, we're going to ask the questions no one else is asking. Was this all part of Roman's master plan from the beginning? Did Solo ever really leave the bloodline? And is this new bloodline even more dangerous than the last? Let's not forget, Roman and Solo already know how to break people down. They've done it before. The Usos. Sami Zayn. Cody Rhodes. Kevin Owens. They gaslit them. Lied to them. Broke them physically, emotionally, psychologically. Now imagine all that rage, focused on Fatu and JC Matteo. The carnage isn't coming. It's already started. Before we get into the full breakdown, here's your warning: whatever you thought you knew about WWE's power structure? Forget it. Because this new alliance doesn't care about rules, titles, or redemption arcs. It's about erasure. Solo Sikoa isn't interested in proving himself to fans, family, or management. And Roman Reigns? He's not here to reclaim his throne. He's here to burn it all down. Next up, Part 1, The Betrayal. Let's break down what happened at Money in the Bank, how the turn was executed, and why it might have been the greatest double-cross since Seth Rollins smashed the Shield with a chair. The arena was on fire. Not literally, but the energy, the heat, the tension, you could feel it ripple through the seats, through the screens, through every corner of WWE's global fanbase. Money in the Bank was never just another pay-per-view. It was a stage for chaos, for betrayal, for turning the tide of careers and rewriting the rules of power. But no one, not the fans, not the commentators, not even the so-called insiders, saw this betrayal coming. Solo Sikoa. The silent enforcer. The stone-faced protector. The man who took chair shots and backstabs for the sake of the bloodline. He was loyal. He was dangerous. He was blood. And in the final minutes of a match that already had fans on their feet, he was surrounded. Fatu. JC Mateo. Two men who weren't just newer members of the bloodline, they were the future of it. Roman had stepped away. The Usos were scattered. Heyman was scrambling. And the company, for months, had quietly positioned Fatu and Matteo as the evolution. The next generation. They had the charisma, the strength, and the ruthless streak to carry the brand. But they also had ambition. And that ambition came with a price. It happened so fast, people had to replay it in slow motion to fully process it. One moment, the match looked under control. Solo had just landed a devastating Samoan spike. The crowd surged. You could hear it. The pop, the chants, the roar of a fanbase that had waited weeks to see him turn the tide. Then it hit. First, it was Matteo. A blindside elbow to Solo's head. Clean. Brutal. No hesitation. Solo dropped to one knee, stunned. Before he could react, Fatu followed with a spear that cut through Solo like a missile. And then the steel chair. Not one shot. Not two. 7. Each one louder than the last. Each one a message, you're out. We run this now. The audience was stunned. No music hit. No ref stepped in. The camera didn't cut away. It zoomed in. And in that close-up, you could see everything. Not fear. Not pain. Confusion. Betrayal. Solo didn't scream. He didn't crawl away. He just stared up at them like he was seeing ghosts. Like he couldn't believe what was happening. And maybe he couldn't. This wasn't a promo. This wasn't a work. This was raw theater, and for a moment, it didn't feel like wrestling. It felt like a man watching his identity get ripped away in real time. Fatu stood over him. Chair in hand. Breathing heavy. Mateo knelt beside him and whispered something into Solo's ear. Whatever it was, it made Solo blink hard. Just once. Then the two walked away. No celebration. No taunt. Just silence. A silence that said, "We're done with you." The commentators didn't know what to say. Corey Graves broke the moment with something like, "That's family, folks. That's what betrayal looks like when it cuts the deepest." Even Michael Cole couldn't hide it. Solo Sikoa just got erased from the bloodline. Like he never existed. And that's exactly what Fatu and Mateo wanted. To erase him. Not just from the story, but from the legacy. They didn't want him out of the way. They wanted him forgotten. But here's the thing about people like Solo Sikoa. They don't forget. Now, let's rewind. This wasn't random. And if you look closely, there were signs, subtle, small, but deadly. JC Mateo had been making power plays for months. On camera, he was the right-hand man. Sharp suits. Calculated promos. Smiling 1 minute, snapping the next. He wasn't just there to fight, he was there to position himself. To build influence. Jacob Fatu, on the other hand, was the Enforcer 2.0. Bigger, faster, louder. A street-fighting wrecking ball with no filter and zero restraint. Together, they represented the perfect storm. But they also shared one thing, resentment. Fatu, despite being blood, was always the odd one out. Too violent, too unpredictable, too uncontrollable. WWE was hesitant to pull the trigger on him for years. But when Roman stepped back and the bloodline seemed leaderless, the opportunity finally came. Mateo convinced management, and probably Paul Heyman, that the faction needed an upgrade. That Solo was too quiet, too passive, too easily manipulated. They didn't say it out loud. But their actions screamed it. Start watching the footage again, and you'll see the difference. Backstage promos where Mateo speaks over Solo. 6-man tag matches where Fatu takes the spotlight and Solo gets the scraps. Segments where the camera lingers on Mateo's smirk just a second too long when Solo gets pinned. The writing was on the wall. And at Money in the Bank, they didn't just pull the trigger. They emptied the clip. But here's where it gets deeper. It wasn't just about getting Solo out of the way. It was about removing the past. The bloodline was Roman's empire. His vision. His rules. Mateo and Fatu didn't just want to replace Solo, they wanted to reinvent the bloodline without the shadow of Roman hanging over them. They saw Solo as a relic. A servant of a system they wanted to destroy. So they didn't just beat him. They humiliated him. And they did it in the most public, most brutal way possible. Because they knew the message wouldn't just be heard by Solo. It would be heard by Roman. And that's the part that blew up in their faces. They assumed Roman was done. Retired. Disinterested. Detached. But they forgot something fundamental. Roman Reigns doesn't forget. And Solo Sikoa doesn't forgive. In the days after the betrayal, Solo vanished. No tweets. No appearances. No interviews. Mateo mocked it during promos, calling him Ghostface, acting like he'd been spooked into retirement. Fatu shrugged it off. "One dog down," he said. "Two kings left." But Solo wasn't hiding. He was watching. And when he returned backstage last night, there was no music, no camera crew, no pre-tape. Just a closed door. Roman's locker room. For 20 seconds, no one moved. Security didn't step in. Producers didn't interfere. Then the door opened. And Solo walked in. Cameras barely caught it. A shaky, off-center backstage feed. But it was clear enough. Roman standing. Arms crossed. Solo staring him down. No words. Just tension. Then the handshake. Not long. Not flashy. Just enough. And in that handshake, 1,000 words. The message was clear: let's finish what we started. The betrayal was the spark. The alliance is the explosion. And Fatu and Matteo? They lit the match. So what happens next? Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa aren't just planning revenge. They're planning annihilation. The betrayal didn't break Solo. It rebirthed him. And in doing so, it gave Roman something far more terrifying than another title shot. It gave him purpose. So ask yourself this. What happens when two betrayed men, bound by blood and fury, decide to burn the world that turned on them? You're about to find out. The dust had settled, but the tension hadn't. When Solo Sikoa was helped to the back after the betrayal at Money in the Bank, it wasn't just the end of a beatdown, it was the beginning of a shift. Something had snapped. In the locker room. In the fanbase. In Solo himself. And for the next several days, WWE went silent. No statements. No updates. No injury report. No backstage footage. That wasn't an oversight. It was deliberate. Because when betrayal cuts that deep, the aftermath isn't physical. It's psychological. And Solo Sikoa didn't need to tell the world how he felt. He needed to figure out who he was. For the first time in months, the so-called enforcer wasn't enforcing anything. He wasn't standing guard behind Roman Reigns. He wasn't rescuing Paul Heyman from chaos. He wasn't smacking someone mid-match to shift momentum. He was gone. And that absence was louder than any promo could have been. Let's be clear, Solo Sikoa has always been a man of few words. His power never came from what he said, it came from what he did. But silence? 4 days? From a man who just had his career, his pride, and his family ripped away in the middle of a stadium? That's not just quiet. That's dangerous. Backstage, the rumors were thick. Some claimed he walked out of the building without talking to anyone. Others said he threw his gear in the trash and told producers he was done. A few whispered that Roman had reached out, only to be ignored. WWE's creative team didn't comment. Paul Heyman, who never misses a chance to spin a narrative, refused to go on camera. And Roman Reigns? He stayed off the grid. Not a word. Not a reaction. That silence, from both sides, said more than any storyline ever could. This wasn't just a faction collapse. It was personal. Solo had been humiliated by men he trusted. Men who weren't just allies, but blood. And now, everyone wanted to know, what would he do? Would he return and go after Fatu and Matteo alone? Would he disappear into free agency? Would he try to prove himself again? The truth was more complicated than anyone expected. Because Solo Sikoa wasn't planning a comeback. He was planning something else. Something colder. But before that happened, WWE's ecosystem started reacting. The locker room felt it first. Wrestlers who had worked with Solo in NXT began posting cryptic messages. Tweets with blacked-out images. Instagram stories with no captions, just a shot of Solo's eyes after a match. This wasn't nostalgia. It was a warning. Then the mid-card started shifting. Matches involving Fatu and Matteo started getting more hostile. Crowd reactions became unpredictable. Some booed. Some cheered. Some were dead silent, confused by what they had seen. Commentators tried to reset the narrative. The new leaders of the Bloodline, they called Fatu and Matteo. But it didn't stick. Because deep down, everyone knew the truth: you don't inherit the Bloodline. You take it. And you pay for it. Fatu didn't care. He leaned into the booze. Called himself the Crown Breaker. Said Solo got what he had coming. Matteo, ever the mouthpiece, laughed it off on SmackDown. Solo Sikoa was never a king, he said. He was a guard dog. And when a dog bites the wrong hand, you put him down. That line caught fire. It also signed his death warrant. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, Paul Heyman was unraveling. For years, he orchestrated the Bloodline's every move. He knew when to pull strings. When to play puppet master. When to walk the line between genius and coward. But after Solo's collapse, Heyman lost his grip. He stopped appearing regularly. Avoided interviews. Declined fan questions during panels. And when he did show up, he looked like a man trying to hold back a storm. Because Heyman knows Roman. He knows how the tribal chief operates. And more importantly, he knows what happens when Roman gets humiliated. Roman Reigns doesn't retaliate immediately. He waits. He calculates. Then he strikes with surgical precision. Solo Sikoa, on the other hand, doesn't wait. He doesn't threaten. He acts. And Heyman knew the moment that chair came down on Solo's back, the countdown had started. But he couldn't stop it. The Bloodline was no longer a unit. It was a ticking time bomb. And the explosion was coming. WWE creative scrambled behind the scenes. They weren't just trying to book matches, they were trying to manage chaos. Because when real emotion leaks into kayfabe, the lines get blurry. And fans could tell. They saw the shift in Solo's demeanor. The slow-building tension in every segment. The unease in the air every time Fatu or Matteo entered the ring. They knew something was coming. And then, 3 weeks later, it happened. SmackDown. Backstage. No music. No warning. A single camera feed caught the moment. Roman Reigns' locker room. Door closed. Security outside. No one speaking. Then Solo walks into frame. No pyro. No entrance. Just Solo. Same gear. Same stare. But something different in his body language. This wasn't a man lost. This was a man with a mission. He looked at security. Nodded once. They didn't move. He opened the door himself. Walked in. Closed it behind him. The camera didn't follow. What happened inside that room? Only 2 people know. But within the hour, the news was everywhere. Solo Sikoa had reunited with Roman Reigns. The handshake was real. And the war had officially begun. This wasn't just a return. This was a reset. And if you're wondering what that means? It means that the most dangerous version of the Bloodline has just been reborn. Smaller. Smarter. Meaner. The loyalty is gone. The emotion is gone. What's left is 2 men with nothing to lose. And everything to take back. Jacob Fatu and JC Matteo may have thrown the first punch. But now, they're in the crosshairs of 2 men who specialize in revenge. And there's one more layer to this aftermath that no one's talking about, the rest of WWE. Because when 2 wolves like Roman and Solo start moving in the shadows again, the ripple effects touch everybody. Other factions feel the pressure. Other champions feel the threat. Everyone, backstage, in creative, in the locker room. knows the calm is over. This isn't just about payback. It's about control. And in WWE, when the Bloodline gets control, history shows they don't give it back. So here we are. Solo's silence has broken. Roman's absence has ended. The handshake has happened. The Bloodline isn't dead. It's mutated. And now, the aftermath isn't about what happened. It's about what happens next. There was no press conference. No social media rollout. No flashy entrance. Just a quiet moment behind a closed door. And yet, in that moment, the entire Bloodline saga changed course. Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa, once fractured by betrayal, now fused by fury, weren't coming back to reclaim anything. They were coming to destroy. The handshake scene backstage wasn't ceremonial. It was symbolic. A silent pact between two men who had been broken, cast aside, and underestimated. And it was more than just an alliance. It was a rebirth. Forget the old bloodline, the tribal ceremonies, the finger-pointing, the speeches about loyalty and family. That era is over. This new version is stripped down and dangerous. Two men. No distractions. No lies about unity. Just vengeance. Let's call it what it is, the Bloodline 2.0 isn't a faction. It's a weapon. And it's loaded. Let's break it down. First, there's Roman Reigns. The tribal chief. The longest-reigning Universal Champion in modern WWE history. His dominance wasn't about match count, it was psychological. He manipulated his own cousins. He weaponized Paul Heyman's fear. He rewrote narratives in real time. Now, he's no longer champion. But that doesn't make him weaker. It makes him liberated. Roman doesn't need to protect the throne anymore. He doesn't need to keep the house in order. He's free to burn it down. And he has exactly the right person standing beside him. Solo Sikoa. The man who never smiled. Never talked much. Just hit people hard and left them laying. But now? Solo's evolution is complete. The betrayal changed him. It stripped away the blind loyalty. It killed the idea that he was just a bodyguard or a soldier. Now he's something else, co-architect of destruction. In the old bloodline, Solo took orders. In the new one, he's making moves. You could see it instantly after the alliance was reborn. Body language doesn't lie. Roman wasn't in front of Solo anymore, he was beside him. And that small detail told a massive story. This is a partnership, not a hierarchy. Because Roman knows he needs someone who won't hesitate. And Solo? He's looking for someone who'll let him off the leash. They found each other at the exact right time. But here's what makes this alliance so deadly. It's not just based on strategy. It's built on rage. Roman watched his empire get mocked. He watched the faction he created mutate into something led by people who didn't understand what made it work. Mateo and Fatu took the name, but they didn't inherit the purpose. They thought they could remove the tribal chief and keep the crown. But they forgot what the crown represents. Fear. Order. Obedience. Without Roman, the bloodline is just a group of angry men in matching shirts. With Roman and Solo together again? It's an execution squad. And they're not coming to argue. They're coming to hurt people. Let's talk tactics. In the weeks since the alliance reformed, Roman and Solo haven't spoken a word publicly. No promos. No social media. No shoot interviews. They don't need to speak. They've made their intentions clear through action. First, the locker room ambush. Untelevised, unannounced. Mateo was caught talking to producers. Security cameras caught the aftermath. Tables flipped, chairs shattered, blood on the floor. No witnesses. No comment. Then, the silent walkout on SmackDown. No music. No pyro. Just the sight of Solo walking to the ring during Mateo's match, staring him down from the ramp, not saying a word. Mateo visibly flinched. That wasn't a promo. That was psychological warfare. Solo and Roman aren't just stronger, they're smarter. They understand timing. They understand fear. And they understand that the best way to reclaim power isn't through titles, it's through dominance. Every time they show up now, people freeze. Fans know it. Superstars feel it. Even commentary sounds different when their names are mentioned. There's a weight to them again. But there's another piece to this alliance that's getting overlooked. They don't trust anyone. Not Paul Heyman. Not the Usos. Not creative. They're running on instinct and history. Roman doesn't need a mouthpiece anymore. He's already made his point. Solo doesn't need backup. He is the backup. And the synergy is real. Roman sets the vision. Solo enforces it. They don't argue. They execute. And that execution is what's terrifying. Because there's no plan too dark. No betrayal too personal. And no consequence they won't absorb. They've lost everything once already. Reputation. Family. Legacy. Now there's nothing left to lose. That's what makes them so dangerous. They're not defending. They're attacking. And their first targets are clear. Fatu and JC Matteo thought they could seize control through violence. But they didn't realize that Roman and Solo invented the violence they're trying to weaponize. Fatu is a brute force. Mateo is a schemer. But Roman and Solo? They're artists of destruction. Their chaos isn't wild, it's calculated. Their revenge isn't loud, it's cold. And when you combine Roman's precision with Solo's fury, you don't get retaliation. You get annihilation. Here's the scariest part, this alliance isn't temporary. This isn't about one match or one feud. This is about building something new from the ashes of what was. Roman and Solo aren't looking to restore the bloodline. They're building a version that can't be overthrown. No weak links. No doubters. No compassion. Just consequences. And they're coming. Fatu and Mateo are already feeling the squeeze. Solo's been appearing in the crowd during their matches. Staring. Roman's been spotted in production meetings, rewriting finishes, adjusting camera angles. Not to protect himself, but to control how this new chapter unfolds. They're not just wrestling a match. They're producing a legacy. And in that legacy, there's no room for mercy. Now let's talk motive. Why did Solo go back? Because rage without direction is noise. But rage with leadership is war. Roman gave Solo something Mateo and Fatu couldn't. A reason. Not just to fight. But to finish what was started. And Solo, in return, gave Roman the one thing no one else could. A soldier who no longer questions orders, because he's no longer confused about who he is. Solo knows the cost now. He's paid it. In blood. In silence. In betrayal. And now? He's cashing in. With Roman. The alliance isn't just strategic. It's poetic. Two fallen kings. One burning purpose. To erase those who mocked their crown and to remind the world that dominance isn't passed down. It's taken back. So, what does this mean for WWE? It means no one is safe. Because Roman and Solo aren't looking for a title belt. They're looking for power. And when they find it? They're not letting go this time. They didn't flinch. Not at first. When word spread backstage that Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa had reunited, Fatu and JC Matteo didn't blink. No panic. No statements. No damage control. Instead, they smiled. But make no mistake, those smiles were forced. Because deep down, both men understood exactly what they'd done. They didn't just betray a faction. They provoked two apex predators into survival mode. And now the hunters had a target. Let's start with JC Mateo. The mind of the operation. The one who calculated every move since Roman began his slow fade from leadership. Mateo saw the cracks forming in the bloodline and filled them like a parasite. Quick with words. Smarter than most. Always 2 steps ahead. But this time? He overplayed his hand. He thought eliminating Solo was the final move. He didn't expect the resurrection. When news of the handshake broke, Mateo went on offense. Not in the ring, but in promos. The very next week on SmackDown, he opened the show in the center of the ring, mic in hand. "I'm not afraid of ghosts," he said. "They say Roman's back. Solo's back. Good. Let them walk through that curtain and look me in the eyes. Because this isn't a family anymore, it's a battlefield." The crowd wasn't sold. They didn't boo. They didn't cheer. They just watched. Because they knew, Mateo was performing strength. But performing and possessing are two very different things. What we saw was deflection. A man trying to maintain control in a narrative that was spinning away from him. Mateo built his power through manipulation. Backroom deals. Alliances stitched together with promises and pressure. But Roman and Solo don't negotiate. They don't politic. They destroy. And JC Mateo knows that. So, he kept talking. He doubled down. Claimed Solo was weak. Claimed Roman was outdated. He even went as far as to say that the bloodline was reborn the night we buried our past. That's a bold line. It's also a stupid one. Because if Roman Reigns is anything, it's the past, the present, and, for now, the problem. Meanwhile, Jacob Fatu took a different approach. He didn't grab a mic. He grabbed a fight. Fatu is the storm. Always has been. He doesn't care about the family drama, the mind games, or the legacy battles. He just wants chaos. And that's exactly what he brought. The week after the Alliance news broke, Fatu hijacked a tag team match mid-broadcast. Didn't wait for a cue. Didn't even let the ref call it. He stormed the ring, laid out both competitors, and grabbed a steel chair. One by one, he cracked it across their backs until security swarmed him. As they pulled him away, he screamed one line that echoed through the arena. "This is MY Island now." That wasn't just a promo. It was a challenge. Fatu wants to be feared. Needs to be. And for a while, it worked. Until Solo showed up in the parking lot the next week. No camera crew. No script. Just Solo, in a hoodie, standing in front of Fatu's SUV. Security tried to intervene. He waved them off. Then he pulled something from his jacket. It wasn't a weapon. It was a broken Bloodline t-shirt. Torn down the middle. He dropped it at Fatu's feet and walked away. No words. That was the warning shot. And Fatu heard it loud and clear. From that point on, the energy shifted. Mateo, once bold and boastful, started walking with extra security. Fatu, usually first to enter a fight, stopped showing up early to tapings. They weren't scared, not yet. But they were preparing. Because this isn't the kind of fight you win with tactics or brute force. This is a war of attrition. And Fatu and Mateo are realizing they woke up something they don't know how to put back to sleep. Let's dig into Fatu's mindset. This is a man raised in violence. Brought into the business through chaos. Every match is a fight. Every promo is a dare. But that also means he sees the game differently. Fatu doesn't strategize. He reacts. And now he's reacting to a threat that doesn't shout. It whispers. It stalks. Roman and Solo aren't making noise. They're making plans. That terrifies a man like Fatu. Because you can't punch silence. And Mateo? He's the opposite. He lives in sound. In speeches. In optics. But optics don't work when your enemies don't play along. Roman's not engaging him on the mic, Solo's not returning fire. They're letting Mateo spiral in public, and it's working. You can see the tension in his eyes. The hesitation in his words. He's trying to regain the upper hand, but every move he makes feels defensive. This is the consequence of their betrayal. It wasn't just the act. It was who they acted against. They didn't attack a man. They attacked a legacy. Roman Reigns is a master of reinvention. Solo Sikoa is a master of endurance. Together, they're about to teach Fatu and Matteo a lesson in consequences. But here's the twist. Fatu and Matteo aren't giving up. They're doubling down. In backstage meetings, they've reportedly been pushing creative for more airtime, more matches, more segments where they control the story. That's not confidence. That's desperation. They're trying to flood the timeline before the hammer drops. But it's already too late. Because Roman and Solo don't need time. They need targets. And Fatu and Matteo already painted the bullseyes on their backs. There's also another factor. The rest of the locker room. Most are staying quiet. But some have started choosing sides. Rumors suggest a few mid-carders are aligning themselves with Fatu and Matteo, chasing opportunity, clout, or chaos. Others have reportedly reached out to Roman quietly, hoping to be seen as loyal. It's not just two sides anymore. It's a ripple. The locker room is splitting. And that fracture is going to widen. Because as the feud intensifies, the need for reinforcements will grow. Fatu and Matteo are proud. But pride doesn't win wars. And right now, they're running on fumes and arrogance. Solo and Roman? They're running on something else entirely. Fuel. Fury. Focus. And when that combination hits? It won't be a match. It'll be a message. The enemies have responded. But they're not ready. WWE fans are used to twists. Heel turns. Shocking alliances. Surprise returns. In an industry built on spectacle, it takes something truly seismic to jolt the audience into stunned silence. This was one of those moments. The second Solo Sikoa walked into Roman Reigns' locker room and shook his hand, the wrestling world stopped breathing. You could see it on live threads, Twitter timelines, Instagram reels, TikTok reactions, anywhere fans gather, the buzz was instant. The Bloodline wasn't just back. It had evolved. And the fans? They were split in every direction. Let's break down the shockwaves. In the immediate aftermath, social media exploded. The hashtag Bloodline Reborn trended for 3 days straight. Fans weren't just reacting, they were trying to process what this meant for the future of WWE's most dominant story arc. Some called it the greatest twist in modern wrestling storytelling. Others called it terrifying. A user on Reddit's r/squared circle said, "This is like watching a dragon lose its wings and grow claws instead. Roman and Solo are monsters now, and I'm here for it." Another top comment read, "Solo didn't go rogue. He leveled up. This version of him is colder, quieter, and more dangerous than anything we've seen." But not everyone was cheering. A vocal segment of the fanbase, particularly fans of Jacob Fatu, pushed back. They believed Matteo and Fatu were the rightful next generation. New blood, fresh intensity. To them, Roman and Solo's return felt like a power grab. An old guard clinging to a throne they no longer deserved. One user tweeted, "We love the tribal chief, but this ain't it. Fatu and Matteo earned this moment. Let them lead." And that division? It wasn't just online. It showed up in arenas. SmackDown's crowd the following week was loud. Not loud with cheers or boos, but loud with tension. Every mention of the bloodline triggered dueling chants, SOLO. Fatu's house. TRI Ball Chief. We want war. WWE fans weren't reacting to a character shift. They were reacting to a power vacuum. And for the first time in years, the Bloodline storyline wasn't just a drama. It was a debate. Who owns the legacy? Who gets to carry the name? And more importantly, who should be afraid of whom? That kind of division is rare. And it's gold for WWE. Because when fans choose sides that passionately, you're no longer watching a scripted feud. You're watching a movement. And WWE knew it. Producers immediately leaned into it. Camera angles changed. Promo segments became less polished. The edges were rougher, the silences longer, the energy tenser. You could feel it in every cutaway, every backstage segment where nothing was said, but everything was felt. Analysts started to take notice. Dave Meltzer called the alliance one of the smartest second-act moves in recent WWE storytelling. Sean Ross Sapp described it as an emotional ambush. You expect Solo to come back angry, but not calculated. You expect Roman to be distant, but not surgical. This isn't about family. It's about domination. Even veteran talents weighed in. Booker T on his podcast said, "This is when wrestling stops being about titles and starts being about territory." Roman and Solo are about to treat WWE like it's a map they plan to conquer, inch by inch. Corey Graves, speaking off-script during a Raw commercial break, looked directly into the camera and said, "If you're not scared of what's happening, you're not paying attention." But maybe the most telling response came from backstage. Whispers began surfacing about locker room politics. Some wrestlers were thrilled. More screen time. More angles to play into. Others? Not so much. The Bloodline storyline has always cast a shadow. If you're not part of it, you're competing against it for airtime. And now, with Roman back and Solo operating like a silent assassin, producers were reportedly rewriting entire show segments around their presence. Mid-card feuds were put on hold. Title matches got bumped for storyline developments. Segments that had nothing to do with the Bloodline suddenly had to adjust because Roman and Solo were lurking, watching, planning, influencing. It was no longer about who had the belt. It was about who had the control. The ripple effects didn't stop there. The creative team had to pivot. Suddenly, long-term plans involving Mateo and Fatu as potential tag champs were in flux. Rumors circulated that internal meetings became heated. Some wanted to push Fatu and Mateo further as the antagonists. Others believed Roman and Solo's return needed to reshape the roadmap. Why? Because this alliance had teeth. And the fans couldn't look away. Merchandise sales proved it. Solo's new t-shirt, with the words "No Family, Just Fire" sold out in less than 2 hours. Roman's classic "Acknowledge Me" design started trending again, with fans remixing it into "Re-Acknowledge Me." TikTok was flooded with edits, slow-mo clips of the handshake, intense remixes of past Bloodline moments, dramatic side-by-sides of Solo pre- and post-betrayal. The fanbase wasn't watching the show anymore. They were building the mythology. And that's when you know you've hit something real. So what does all this mean for the industry? It means WWE just stumbled into a goldmine of emotional investment. Not just from fans, but from their own roster. The narrative now goes beyond wins and losses. It's about loyalty, betrayal, power, fear, legacy. And at the center of that storm are 4 men: Roman, Solo, Mateo, and Fatu. But let's be real, only 2 of them have the upper hand right now. Because Roman and Solo didn't return to argue for their spot. They returned to erase the competition. And if the reactions are any indication, the fans aren't just ready for it, they're hungry for it. Because this isn't just the continuation of the Bloodline story. It's the consequence. And in WWE, consequences echo. This isn't just another feud. It's not leading to a handshake at WrestleMania or a triple threat title match. This is a war with no clean ending. No final bell. Just scorched earth. Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa didn't realign to restore the bloodline. They returned to rewrite it. The original version was built on hierarchy, Roman at the top, everyone else obeying. This one? It's leaner, stripped of dead weight, sharpened by betrayal. And the mission is clear: burn down what betrayed them. The plan isn't about championships, at least not yet. It's about domination. Optics. Making everyone from JC Mateo to the last guy in the locker room remember who made the bloodline matter in the first place. So, what comes next? 3 phases. Phase 1, Psychological Warfare. Roman and Solo don't need a title belt to control a room. All they need is presence. And that's exactly what they've begun reasserting. It starts small. Showing up unannounced during segments. Causing walkouts in matches. Appearing in the background during promos, not saying a word, but watching. The message is simple: you're never safe. It's what Roman does best: control the narrative without ever raising his voice. And Solo? He makes sure no one gets the chance to respond. In the first few weeks after the handshake, they focused entirely on presence. No mic time. No matches. Just interruption. Just intimidation. That's strategy. Keep the enemies uncomfortable. Force them into overreaction. Phase 2, Tactical Strikes. Eventually, presence isn't enough. You need impact. You need moments. That's when the ambushes begin. Jacob Fatu walks out for a singles match, finds himself laid out backstage before the bell. JC Mateo enters the ring for a contract signing, lights cut, and when they come back, Roman's standing behind him. Not every attack needs to land. Some are psychological setups. Some are physical executions. But each one chips away at their confidence. And when your enemies start second-guessing every move? That's when you own them. But the biggest play in this phase isn't an ambush. It's a message. Roman and Solo make their first public appearance together, not in a match, not in a promo. But sitting ringside. Watching. Preferably during a match that Mateo or Fatu are involved in. Their silence becomes louder than anything on the mic. And when the match ends? They don't speak. They just leave. That's how you shake a throne. Now, Phase 3, Systemic Erasure. This is where Roman and Solo go beyond Mateo and Fatu. The war expands. They begin targeting people connected to their enemies. Mid-card alliances. Tag teams with grudges. Anyone who's aligned themselves with the so-called new bloodline. This includes people who backed Fatu publicly. Wrestlers who reposted Mateo's promos. Backstage producers who gave them creative priority. No one is off limits. This stage is about reminding the company who runs the ecosystem. Because while Mateo and Fatu are reacting, Roman and Solo are already 3 steps ahead, turning the narrative from who's in charge to who's left standing. It's not just strategy. It's cleansing. A bloodletting. And it sets the stage for the final transformation. Because when the dust settles, the bloodline will look nothing like it did before. And that's the point. The goal isn't restoration. It's mutation. But there's a twist coming. One no one expects. At some point, Roman will test Solo. Not publicly. Not in a match. But in a moment of decision. A moment where Solo could either follow Roman or forge his own path. Because Roman doesn't share power. He tolerates it. Briefly. Strategically. But eventually? He reminds you who the leader is. And that moment will be critical. Because Solo Sikoa is no longer a pawn. He's no longer the quiet enforcer. He's not the background anymore. He's the headline. The future. And when Roman tries to reassert control? That's where this war truly escalates. Because then it's not just Bloodline versus rebels. It's Solo versus Roman. But not yet. That moment comes later. Right now? They're unified by fury. And that unity is terrifying. Meanwhile, Fatu and Matteo will scramble to rebuild. They'll try to recruit. Look for backup. But here's the issue, no one trusts them. They betrayed Solo. They tried to erase Roman. Anyone who joins them now knows they're joining a sinking ship. So, Fatu may go rogue. He's volatile. He doesn't follow orders well. Matteo might try to cut a deal, with Heyman, with producers, with anyone who'll listen. But Roman and Solo? They won't negotiate. They don't forgive. They finish. As this war unfolds, expect surprise appearances. Family members. Old allies. Even the Usos. Because a war this personal always calls the blood back to the battlefield. The Usos, who both suffered and inflicted betrayal, will eventually be forced to choose. Do they align with Roman and Solo? Or do they stand alone? And if they align with neither? They become collateral. This is the cost of legacy. No one escapes clean. But here's the wild card, Paul Heyman. The wise man. The architect. The one person who knows all the secrets, and plays all the sides. He's been silent so far. Watching from the sidelines. Anxious. Calculating. But soon, he'll reappear. And when he does, it won't be to advise. It'll be to survive. Because Heyman knows something no one else does, the bloodline isn't a faction. It's a fire. And once it starts, it doesn't stop burning. So, what comes next? It's not a climax. It's a spread. A slow takeover of everything and everyone. Every title match. Every backstage segment. Every storyline thread. They'll all start bending toward this central war. Because this isn't just Roman and Solo versus Fatu and Matteo. This is about who defines dominance in WWE. This is about who controls the narrative going into the next WrestleMania. And whoever wins? They don't just reshape the brand. They become the brand. That was the narrative that made sense after Money in the Bank. After the brutal chair shots. After he was left broken in the middle of the ring by men he once called brothers. The world had already written his ending. Solo was betrayed. Solo was out. Solo was finished. But last night changed all of that. Because Solo didn't crawl away. He came back. Not for redemption. Not for forgiveness. He came back for vengeance. And when he shook Roman Reigns' hand backstage, quiet, calm, deliberate, it wasn't just a handshake. It was a signal. The bloodline isn't dead. It's reborn. Smaller. Sharper. Meaner. And with a mission far more personal than anything that came before it. Let's step back. The original bloodline was about dominance through loyalty. Roman created a machine. He didn't just fight his opponents, he converted them. The Usos, Sami Zayn, even Paul Heyman were all folded into his gravitational pull. And for a time, the system worked. But the machine had flaws. Ego. Ambition. Family history. And like all dynasties, it rotted from the inside. Solo saw that. He lived it. He enforced it. Until it turned on him. And that betrayal wasn't just an inciting incident, it was an awakening. For Roman too. He watched from the shadows as Matteo and Fatu attempted to carry his legacy. Not continue it. Not honor it. Carry it. As if it were theirs to take. They thought removing Solo was the last step in their rise. They didn't realize it was the first move in their downfall. Because you can't kill something built on rage and memory. You can't inherit trauma. You can only answer to it. And now that trauma is hunting them. The return of Roman and Solo isn't a comeback. It's a collapse. Of everything Matteo and Fatu thought they built. Of the perception that the old bloodline was gone. Of the idea that WWE's most dominant faction was ever about unity. It was never about love. It was always about control. And now the two men most wronged by betrayal are the ones holding the leash again. Solo Sikoa isn't standing in anyone's shadow anymore. He's not the quiet enforcer. He's not the afterthought. He's evolved. He's leading alongside Roman, but make no mistake, he's no one's soldier. That's what makes this new bloodline so dangerous. There's no longer one alpha. There are two. Two men who've been broken, rebuilt, and reborn in silence. And that silence? It's louder than any promo. Because now, Roman and Solo don't need to convince you who they are. They're here to show you what happens when you forget. They aren't chasing titles. They're hunting legacies. They don't want to reclaim the throne. They want to tear down the entire kingdom and salt the ground. So where does that leave Matteo and Fatu? Cornered. Rattled. Still dangerous, but no longer untouchable. Their swagger is still there, but their foundation is cracking. Because the war they started wasn't just personal. It was generational. They didn't just turn on Solo. They woke up a version of Roman Reigns the world had forgotten. The Roman who doesn't talk about acknowledgement. The Roman who takes it. And when that version stands next to a reborn Solo Sikoa? That's not just a threat. That's a death sentence for anyone wearing the wrong colors. This is where the bloodline war becomes something else entirely. No more family dinners. No more Samoan pride. This is scorched earth storytelling. And the fans? They're not just watching. They're invested. They've chosen sides. Some want the new blood, Fatu and Matteo, to rise. Others want the old gods to take back what's theirs. But all of them are waiting for the next explosion. And it's coming. Soon. Because this isn't just about Solo Sikoa anymore. This is about everyone who ever crossed Roman. Everyone who ever doubted him. Everyone who ever thought the tribal chief would stay quiet after being dethroned. He's not quiet now. He's rearmed. And he's standing beside the one man who survived what should have killed him. Solo Sikoa isn't finished. He's just starting. And now, the bloodline has no brakes. No mercy. No peace. So the question isn't whether Matteo and Fatu can survive. The question is, who else will get caught in the fire? Because this isn't the end of the story. This is the ignition point. This is war. If you're reading this, drop your allegiance in the comments. Are you riding with Roman and Solo? Or do you still believe in Matteo and Fatu? Either way, get ready. Because no matter who wins, everyone bleeds.